Okay. Audio is okay, na? Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. So we were discussing the 15th verse of the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The topic is that Lord is the, or Lord or Ishvara is the origin of everything. So that is the main theme of this particular verse. So the verse says, Swayam eva atmanatmanam vetha tvam purushottamam bhuta bhavana bhutesha deva deva jagatpate. So this is what this verse is about. Swayam means thyself. Now this is addressed by, Arjuna is speaking this to and addressing this verse to Lord Krishna. So he says, by thyself, Swayam, Eva, by you only, Atmana, by thyself, Atmanam, Vetha, knowest thou, Tvam, Purushottama, Bhuta Bhavana, means the source of all beings, O Lord of all beings, Deva Deva, Jagatpate, Bhutesha, Lord of all beings. Isha means to rule, and Bhuta means the beings. So Bhutesha means the Lord of all beings. Deva Deva means O God of gods. Jagatpate means one who rules over the world. So the entire meaning of this verse, in essence, is verily you alone know yourself by yourself. Means there's no one better who can know your true nature. That is what Arjuna seems to be telling. Sri Krishna is addressing him, saying, you are the source of all beings, O Purushottama. Purushottama means, as you are all aware, in Sankhya philosophy, on which Vedanta is based, has two realities. One is the Purusha and the other is the Prakriti. So among the Purushas, and there is a multiplicity of Purushas, unlike in Vedanta, where the Atman can be one. We don't, though we believe in different Jivatmas, but the Supreme Atma is one, whereas here there are a lot of individual Purusha. And among these individual Purushas, there's one Purushottama, one who is the greatest amongst all the Purushas. So each soul or each being has a particular Purusha behind the Prakriti. Prakriti constitutes of the three gunas, as we know, and the 24 principles which give rise to creation. Now, here by saying that the Lord is the source of all beings, he is talking of the Avyakta Prakriti. You have to remember that. Because the Purusha, by the very definition, the Atma, it does not take place in the creation. It gives awareness or consciousness to the created world, to the beings. So we have to understand the individual souls here in this verse are called Purushas. They are called Purushas out of courtesy because there are two reasons why they are called Purushas. One is Puri is a word that means there are so many places in India, you see, which are called Puri. Puri means a place where people reside. So it has got another meaning. In our case, it means our body is the place where our soul resides. So because resides in the Puri of our body, he becomes Purusha. That's one definition. The other is this Puri belongs to Prakriti. Puri means this abode. The body which is considered to be abode of Brahman or abode of the Purusha, it is part of Prakriti. We are all parts of Prakriti. We are not Purushas as yet. When we realize our identity with the Purusha or with the Atman, when we realize our true identity, then we disassociate with this Prakriti. But till then, we reside in this abode. You can't say that we are the abode, we are residing here temporarily. We temporarily occupy certain aspects, certain combinations of Prakriti, which is known as the body. And when we vacate it, we can vacate it only when we are disconnected with this Puri, only when we get Mukti. But the Lord, who is the eternal presiding deity over Prakriti, when we say Ishvara, he rules over this whole Prakriti. The Prakriti acts as he wants her to act. So the Avyakta Prakriti, which is also known as Avyakta, when it is unmanifest, that starts manifesting. So Vedanta has a wonderful theory which says the Lord has created these beings out of himself. He cannot create, like the other Semitic religions believe, that God takes all the materials, but where does he get materials outside of him? And how does he create? Does he create like a carpenter creates a piece of furniture? That he has some wood, then he cuts it, and then he makes a furniture. That is not how God creates. He creates, or he projects. That is a better word. See, in Vedanta, the idea of creation is not there. It's only a projection. I project certain things and then withdraw it within myself. The example is given of the spider. The spider, how does it create a web? The spider creates a web out of its own being, and then it withdraws. It then spreads its tentacles and then it goes all over the web. Then you may ask, what is the material from which this spider has created the web? The material is within himself. So being the origin of all beings, he is the Bhuta Bhavana, means one who makes things appear. So that is why that adjective is used. Bhutesha is used later on, but first he is the Bhuta Bhavana. Bhuta Bhavana means one who gives rise to the beings. Purusha himself does not give, he uses Prakriti to create. Now, ruler of all beings that he is also, he not only creates them, but he rules over them. So, Bhutesha and Jagatpati. Bhutesha means Bhuta plus Isha. Isha means to rule. Bhuta means the beings. So, one who rules over other beings is known as Bhutesha. And Jagatpati means, he is the Pati means, actually in vernacular language, Pati means a husband, but it is not true. It is used in a very narrow sense, because that gives the impression that the husband rules over the wife. So in fact, using the word Pati for a husband implies that he rules over the family. But now with all the ideas of gender equality and all, there cannot be a single ruler in the family. So Jagatpati actually means ruler, one who controls. So Jagatpati means one who controls the world. So this Bhutesha and Jagatpati are appellations or some adjectives given to the Lord. Now, but still, these are all adjectives given by us to describe the Lord, or maybe Arjuna, who is representing us. So his glory in its entirety is known only to him and not to anybody else. That's why once Swami Vivekananda once remarked to Swami Premananda while they were coming down from the staircase. He said, who this Vivekananda is and what he has done, only another Vivekananda will understand. So people who are eternally free, who are Nitya Mukta, their actions cannot be understood by somebody who is under the grip of karma. We understand things in our own way because we are bound. But we can't understand these great prophets because they are free. Their actions are totally different. That's why Swami Vivekananda once said, don't imitate me. Listen to what I say, do it, but never imitate me. Because he knew that if we imitate him, we have to be Mukta Purushas ourselves. We don't know him and we try to imitate him, then we can make mistakes. So, the glory of the Lord in entirety is known to him alone, to the Lord alone. So Arjuna is wise enough to admit this. He doesn't claim to understand his guru fully. He says, you know yourself fully well, and only you know yourself, and I am nobody. So the I recollect one beautiful parable of Thakur when he said, how can we judge incarnations or even great people whom we revere? We try to revere great people, we try to understand them, we respect them, but do we really understand them? That understanding them is a different ball game altogether. You can't understand somebody unless you elevate yourself to that level. So an individual, Thakur says, an individual took a diamond to the marketplace for valuation and asked all the shopkeepers about it. Naturally, the vegetable vendor said, I'll give you 5 baskets of brinjal for that gem, because that is what he thought is a proper value for that. 5 baskets of brinjals are nothing compared to the value of that diamond. But a rice merchant thought that I can give him 2 big bags of rice in exchange of that. That is what he thought its value was. It was definitely higher than the value of brinjals, or brinjals means aubergines. So, but definitely rice, 2 bags of rice is not the value of a uh, value of a particular a diamond. Even if it is a small diamond, 2 bags of rice are not enough. Now, there was another cloth merchant. He said, I'll give you a bale of linen, lot of cloth, that is much more valuable than the bags of rice. So he said, I can give you that. You give me the diamond. I think its value is not more than that, a bale of linen. Finally, it was given to the diamond merchant, who alone. So finally, he said, none of these people can evaluate this value of this diamond properly. So he goes to the diamond merchant, and then he says, I'll give you 2 lakh rupees for that. That was a huge amount during Thakur's time. So naturally, he probably understood the true value and gave him the right price. So in this fashion, in this way, the Lord is being understood or appreciated by different people in different ways according to their power of understanding. So Sri Ramakrishna says, God's ways are unfathomable. You cannot judge it. They are unfathomable. They are God's glories. That's why you can't describe the glories of the God of the Lord. So this is the background Arjuna is preparing, because he wants to see the Lord in all his glories. But in spite of this wonderful chapter, Vishwarupa Darshana, Sri Krishna is only able to give him a glimpse of all his glories. Vishwarupa Darshana means he gives them the experience of what the Lord is, all pervading Lord is, and what are his attributes, what are his glories rather than attributes. It's not just the attributes, but the glories which the Lord possesses. So before he shows, this background is going on, and at least Arjuna is humble enough to say that you only know what you are, what your greatness is. How can a brinjal seller, or even a vegetable vendor, or a cloth merchant, or a grain merchant understand the value of a diamond? You have to go to a diamond shop. So also the Lord can be understood by people who have the capacity to understand as the Lord himself. Now the 16th verse, the next verse is Vaktum arhasya sheshena divya yatma vibhutaya. I'll split it for you. Yabhihi vibhutir bhi lokan iman tvam vyapya tisthasi. Now the Sanskrit, after splitting, it comes to this: Vaktum arhasi asheshena, Vaktum arhasi asheshena, Divyaha hi atman Vibhutayah Yabhi Vibhuti Lokan Iman Tvam Vyapya Tisthasi. That means Vaktum means to tell. Arhasi, thou should be able to tell without reminder, without any remainder. Means without completely. One should be able to, you should be able to tell completely, not incompletely like a incompetent people. Divya he, divine indeed, Atma Vibhutaya, thy glories are, your glories are so glorious that only you can tell us. Asheshana means completely. Ashesha means without any shesha, without any remainder. There's no remainder. Everything you would have explained if you yourself explain. So I don't want to judge you. I don't want to evaluate you. I don't want to list your glories. You do it yourself. That's the issue here. And Arjuna seems to be telling Krishna that you please reveal your true nature. Otherwise, there's no way I could understand your glories. Otherwise, it will be like judging a diamond, a vegetable seller judging the value of a diamond. I can't do it. Only a diamond merchant will understand the value of a diamond. So he says, Vibhuti bihi, by which glories? Yabhi vibhuti bihi means by what kind of glories? Lokan, these worlds are pervaded by you. This Vyapya Tishtasi, you are existing in this world, pervading this world with a lot of your glories. Iman. Iman Lokan, these worlds means not just the world, earth, the planets, the sky, the whole universe. You are all pervading and your glories are infinite. And you only tell me how you are all pervading and how do you exist in these different beings which we see, or beings, or the whole nature that we see around us. The whole universe is pervaded by you. So all its objects, all the glories, your glories are expressed through these objects, through these beings. So I would like to know it from you, because you alone know your glories in full measure. So you tell me without hiding anything. If you tell me partly of your own glory, then I will not get a complete picture of who you really are. So that is how Arjuna is building up his plea. He's trying to ask Krishna to reveal himself fully, that and without concealing anything, without that's what he says, asheshena, without keeping something uh, incomplete. You completely exhaust all the glories and possibilities which you have, and I'll try to understand those, and I want to hear it from your own lips, because there is no way that I can struggle and understand these things myself. So just as a musician can alone bring out the fine touches of melody, somebody who is learning music for the first time, though he may love to hear wonderful music, but when it comes to singing, he cannot sing. So also the strength of an elephant, for example, could be demonstrated. If he just keeps quiet, nobody knows what strength he has. But if he lifts some logs or some gigantic work, he uproots some trees, then you understand. If he's just quietly standing, you don't know his glory. So similarly, a monarch, if he just decides to keep a low key and does not display his wealth, then nobody will understand his glory. So also incarnation of God sometimes hides himself, just as a king would hide himself, disguise himself as an ordinary man. The Lord also comes and he disguises himself, and unless he reveals, because if he had not disguised himself, Duryodhana would have opted for Sri Krishna himself. He could not recognize that Sri Krishna is an avatar. So when Krishna offered him, see, both of you brothers, cousins have come for help. On one side, I am available as Sri Krishna, I am available here, but I will not be fighting the war. Whereas on the other side, you can take the entire Yadava and army including all the weapons and the chariots and all. They will be on one side and I will be on the other side. You choose one of these two. So unfortunately, Duryodhana did not know the glory of the Lord. Unlike Arjuna, who even if he did not know, he had the humility to understand that my teacher, my friend, he used to call him a friend, but even though he was so close, he knew of his greatness. So he said, I want to know your glory in all details. Don't conceal anything from me. Whereas Duryodhana was happy. He said, oh, I get such a huge army, and even if I take Krishna, he is not going to fight the war. So what can he possibly do? But what he did not understand was Krishna being the Ishvara, an incarnation, who out of himself creates this world. Not physically, it is from his divine will the world is created with the help of Prakriti. So there is a wrong idea that creator is somebody like a carpenter who takes the wood and fashions out different furniture. That is not how creation takes place. Most of the people understand creation like that. But to rule it from within, to be in control of every being, every object, every planet, every atom, every molecule of the universe by pervading all because of his the pure consciousness which is behind all this expanded or maybe the manifested world. Behind that is that great consciousness. So that splendor is known only to the Lord, being the Ishvara. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel that the revelation of God, the Ishvara's real nature, is revealed only if he is merciful, because he is the son of knowledge, not the knowledge we get from different books and other things. That may be partial knowledge, it may be able to partially indicate what the Lord is. So, Sri Ramakrishna says, he is the son of knowledge. It is possible for a single ray of his to enlighten the whole world. He is so vast, so great. The word Brahman itself means, Brahm means all pervading greatness. Great, actually it means great. So the supreme or the almighty, as some of the Semitic religions, they say God is almighty. What does it mean? He is uh, omniscient and omnipotent. He is all powerful, he is all knowledge. He is the son of knowledge, and with one ray of his knowledge, he can enlighten the whole world, leave alone the small beings like us. It's very easy for him to just give us knowledge at a glance. So we are therefore able to understand one another within our amongst ourselves and also acquire knowledge of all these forms. These great ideas of physics, chemistry, they all come from divine knowledge. That is what he says. So all the glories that we see, which we attribute to human beings, is all the glory of the Lord himself, the Ishvara himself. And if we want to know, we can know him only by his grace. So then now we come to the 17th verse, which is Katham Vidyam Katham Vidyam Aham Yogin Tvam Sada Parichintayan Keshu Keshu Cha Bhaveshu Chintayosi Bhagavan Maya. Now this verse means, how may I know you, O Lord? Katham, how shall I know you? Katham Vidyam Aham Yogin. How can I know you, O Yogin? He is calling the Lord the Supreme Yogin. By constant meditation. At least Arjuna knows this fact, that with a restless mind, a mind which cannot focus on a single thing for even a minute, I can't know you. That is why he is addressing, realizing his uh, turbulent mind, a restless mind. Restlessness means unsteadiness. So here he says, by constant meditation, parichintayan. Chinta is different. We think a lot and we go round and round and round, and that only exhausts us. Our thinking exhausts us. It depletes us. It makes us tired. So a certain stage comes in life when you have to, this Arjuna is understanding, but unfortunately is not able to do it. You see, one of the greatest generals of the world who can conquer everything, he unfortunately says, how can I do you? You are a perfect in meditation. Give me a little glimpse of yours by your grace, because I can't meditate. Now, a person like Arjuna says he can't meditate because, as he said in the sixth chapter, also we saw, he says the mind is restless. By very nature, Prakriti is restless. It even if it tries to concentrate, close your eyes and sit and just think of something which is which has been expressed through words. We don't even have the patience to sit and understand. That is one of the defects of modern education. And as children, we are allowed to be restless. There's no problem at all. We are restless. We can't do a thing when we are supposed to do that thing. But Arjuna here knows that without the Lord's grace, it is not possible. So he says, Katham, how can I? Vidyam, aham yogin. So now he is giving a attribute yogin to Lord Krishna. He doesn't say Krishna or some other word because he wants to say that I respect you because you are an yogin. And because you are a yogin, you can put me in a state of yoga, and for temporarily at least, to reveal your true nature, make me put me in a state of constant meditation. Parichintayan. Chintayan means ordinary chinta, which everybody does. And some of us do. They think they are very wise when they do chinta. They think they are very clever if they outwit others. And they seem to understand everything. But not understanding, just allowing the mind to reveal the knowledge of God, just to allow things intuitively, allow things to come to us. Intuition, that's why intuition is far, far superior than thinking, rational thinking. The West gives so much importance to rational thinking. We go on analyzing and we think we have come to a complete solution. And when we finally find that none of it works, only the intuition works. So Arjuna is pleading and he says, I can't do this meditation, but parichinta, and I want to meditate. Keshu Keshu cha. Which are the aspects of yours on which I should meditate so that my mind becomes a less fickle? It can settle down and think of certain things. In what various aspects are you, O Lord, to be thought of by me? So, this is a question posed by Arjuna. Arjuna, of course, represents all of us. We are struggling with the same problem. And he's trying to say that how can my extrovert mind, which is fickle, cognize your presence in things objective? I'm trying very desperately to do. I can't give up the objective because I have to live in this world. I have to do all these things, including fighting this war. So many of us are doing much less complicated things than Arjuna. So for us, it should be more easier than Arjuna. Arjuna had a tremendous responsibility. Just put yourself, if we put ourselves in his place, there is a war, impending war. The people are all gathered. Some of his very strong relatives also have joined the enemy camp, and they are all coming there to kill him, not just fight with him. It's not a sport. It is something which is a question of life and death. All are standing with their best weapons. And there you can't say that now make your mind calm and be peaceful and meditate. So Arjuna understands that you may have taught me meditation, but now I have to do parichinta. Means I cannot even comprehend what you are. Leave alone meditate on you. I can't, and not only comprehend your glories, I can't even focus on you. So, how he is asking a very simple question, which says, how can my extrovert mind cognize your presence in these toys around me? So it is just like the sight of toys of the child stirs up the thought of that child in the mother. So may I in that manner have the means to revel in you through the things of the world. Now what here Arjuna means is, you see, I am like a child. My mind is as fickle, as restless as a child. But your mind is not like that. You are a yogin. So you have the means, like a mother slowly takes away the toys from the child, tells the child, see, these things are not important, don't be restless. But if you just scold that child, the child will get angry. So here the mother has to schedule that child. Okay, you see, you have played with toys enough. Just leave that. You have to eat food, nourish yourself. Come. So, but the child will listen if the mother explains. So also Arjuna thinks, my mind is restless. I am not able to understand anything of your Leela. What you are doing, making me do. You have asked me to come. You are my Sarathi. You are my guide. I am very hopeful that being my guide in this battle, I know I will win. Somehow you will come and save me. But how do I do it? Why are these doubts assailing me? What are your glories? Can you prove yourself to me? And just like a mother, very patiently, Sri Krishna will explain to him. Just as toys fruit, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, just as toy fruits and a toy elephant remind one of the true fruits and an elephant, the symbols and images of the Lord, the Prakriti, reminds the devotee, a real devotee of the eternal and formless God. So we have Shashi Maharaj, who was a great worshipper of Thakur, and no doubt he understood Sri Ramakrishna much more than his Guru Bhais. So when they were all very keen to take him to different places like Himalayas, why don't you go there? He said, what will I do? They are just one stone upon another. They are placed. I feel the God is playing with us by making these wonderful sights and distracting our attention. I want to see the maker. So also the child, as long as it is busy with the toys, it will be very happy. But the moment it realizes that it needs something higher, it's hungry, it will then just search. Even the small child will search for his mother. So also till that restlessness comes, till that hunger comes to realize the eternal or formless God. Till then, we will be playing with toys, and maybe if we are lucky enough, some of these toys, as Sri Krishna will now do, he will tell Arjuna which are the objects that you like most. Now, these are the very objects in which my special power is there. So, though you may not see the eternal and formless aspect, all pervading aspect of me, try to see him in the best things of the world. Now, what are these wonderful things? This 10th chapter, that's why many people who find meditation very difficult, they just go on repeating this 10th chapter. They say, if you know the vibhutis of the Lord, because Sri Krishna has covered so many vibhutis. So, and he not only covered theoretically, he showed all this. He showed what happens, how people are killed, how he showed that terrific form of the Lord, how he creates and then how he himself kills and crushes, and the whole battle scene and the gory realities of the war, how deaths, how limbs are cut and heads are cut and all the bloodshed. So that whole scene, for a moment, I mean, because of his special grace, Arjuna could see. And Sri Krishna showed him that Vishwarup Darshana. But before that, in this Gita, we see Arjuna is asking questions like most of us do. That we say you are telling us, we ask our gurus or maybe we question our books also. Okay, the books say you should meditate, but the moment I see it, my mind is restless. So how do I stop that restlessness? How can I perceive? Then the guru or then the scripture tells us is indirect method. He says, okay, the toys are making you restless. Okay, I'll give you some technique where you take those toys and then slowly understand its true value. Go see something beyond the toy, then you yourself will give up the toys and go for higher things. So that is now wonderfully explained. I mean, the last question he is asking, again, he is asking, he wants to make sure that Krishna does not hide anything from him. Krishna reveals everything to Arjuna. So he is telling again, tell me again in great detail, O Janardana, of your yoga powers and its attributes, for I am not satiated with hearing your life infusing words. You may give powerful words to me, But I want to know what powers of yoga. Vistarena Atmano Yogam Vibhutim Cha Janardana Bhuya Kathaya Truptirhi Shunvato Nasti Memrutam. Means Bhuya Vistarena, in great detail. Atmana, your yoga. You explain what your yoga is. Also, you explain what your glory is. My mind has limited capacity. And even if it has a great capacity to understand the rules of the war, even the warfare, he was a great mind. It's not so easy to become such a great warrior. So he was exceptionally intelligent, exceptionally skilled. But still he says, please give me that yoga through which I can understand your vibhutis. In other words, he says, just make my mind calm, make it less restless so that I can reach that state of yoga, have your vision, have try to intuitively see what is the truth behind the Ishvara or Avatara or my Ishta, whatever it is. And for that I need your help. Bhuya Kathaya, you tell me again till I get content. Tell fully, Shunvanta, because I am not satisfied. You tell me in great detail, you tell me verbally, but also tell me some inner secrets where I can really understand your attributes. Because your life infusing words are in enough to inspire me. Maybe that will help me to fight the battle, but that will not reveal that insight, that intuition through which I know you as you are, not as I understand you. That is very limited. I'm not happy with that. So he is Janardana. The word Janardana means one who is adored by people. So he's trying to give some kind of uh, uh, praise. He's praising the Lord by saying that normally these words are used by people who want a little enjoyment in the world and also want mukti. So the one who is Janardana, one who is adored by people, some people adore him because he gives them earthly powers. God is able to give you that, but it is temporary. It's just like the mother says, I can give you toys, but what you really need is good food, nourishment, education. That is also what I can give. But the child in the initial stages feels that toys are enough for him. But when it understands the toys are not making him happy, then he tries for mukti. Same thing with the world. The people of the world, they first find earthly enjoyments is what they should ask for. And the Lord gives it. He gives it in a different way. We saw this in an earlier chapter, that these lesser gods, these lesser powers whom we worship for our small problems, they are true, but they are all under my control. So I decide what you want, what you need. That is why one of our devotees, I mentioned that because she is one of our old, very old devotees, 96 years old. So the simple question that was asked is, Sri Ramakrishna was a Kalpataru, so he gives what you want. She immediately corrected. She said, no, I don't want him to give what I want, because I am a foolish person. I have understood this, that I may want for silly things. And Sri Ramakrishna is not somebody who gives all you want, but he gives what you need. So here, Janardana, when he says Janardana, he means that you can give me yoga powers and all the attributes, all the Vishwarupa Darshana you can give me. That will be the highest gift. But at the same time, he knows he needs Arjuna. Arjuna needs Sri Krishna's help to fight the war. So he is very tactfully saying, you also give me what I need, that is mukti, but you also give me what you want. Of course, it contradicts the biblical saying which says you can't have God and mammon at the same time. That means you can't have, but Vedanta, perhaps here, uh, it is an indication that you can choose how much of God you want, or how much you want to go towards God, and how much of the world you can go away from. The choice is yours. You can choose how much. So since he can give both earthly enjoyments and also a mukti, now what we choose, if we can't choose, then leave it to the Lord. As this lady said, devotee said, she said, I know, Sri Krishna knows what I really need. If he gives me what I need, that is enough. Because I don't know what I should want from him. I may want some silly things which are too trivial and they are not useful for me. And if I ask for them, he may or may not give. But she had the confidence to say that Sri Krishna is a different type of avatara or kalpataru. He is not a kalpataru in that sense, but he is a kalpataru who gives you only what you need. He will not give you what you want. We are so foolish, we want so many things which we really don't need. So the attributes of the God which spontaneously remind man of him, he says, you tell me those. You don't confuse me by giving your lesser virtues, lesser attributes, which are of no significance for me. They may be useful to some worldly people, but Arjuna is now mature enough to and wonderful faith, and he has the company of the Lord. What else do you want? His Lord is driving his own vehicle. So he says, give me, tell me of your attributes which remind man of him. I tend to forget the Ishvara, the Lord. So if you give me an experience which convinces me beyond doubt through the Vishwarupa Darshana that you are the one who has all these powers, you are the one who kills, you are the one who gives birth to this universe, you are the one who destroys this universe. As Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, they are supposed to perform different functions, but you are the sum total of all. So absorption in these attributes of God which you reveal to me now, if you reveal to me now in full measure, they these they will help me. And if they will help me to remember him always, remember the Lord always. So here in this case he's saying to remember you always, because he is convinced that you are the Lord, but you have to tell me. What matters here is that acceptance of the fact that the Lord by his grace can reveal himself to me. That is what the prayer is all about, that the Lord will reveal himself to me if he has showers his grace, because I have no way of knowing either what I want or what I understand. The attributes, they will be very, very trivial, or they will be rudimentary, because I don't have that understanding. So the Jivatma grows increasing in divinity. It keeps on. The Jivatma here is represented by Arjuna. So he keeps growing increasingly in divinity because he wants higher and higher things. As a child grows, he wants higher and higher toys. So he is now saying, give me all your divine attributes, which people don't know. Unless you tell, people will not know. And I don't want to hear from anybody else. I want from your own mouth, because you are my Guru, you are my Ishta, you are my friend, you are my everything. So the relationship between Ishvara and Jivatma, according to Sri Krishna beautifully puts it, is like a magnet and an iron. So as long as the iron is covered with mud and a lot of other material, the magnet will not attract it. All we do by sadhana is to clean the mud. Then the rest of it, the Lord himself does. This is a very important point to remember, that our sadhana means removing the mud which has stuck to the magnet, to the iron. And magnet is like the Lord. He is always attracting you, but something is preventing us from getting attached to the Lord. Now, Bhagavan will start. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. From verse 19 to 40 of this chapter, you will find, now we have just completed 18, we come to the 19th, where all the different vibhutis, this is a wonderful chapter, all the vibhutis will be described, and the Lord begins with the first verse, Hantate kathayishyami, Hantate kathayishyami Divya Yatma Vibhutayah Pradhanyatah Kuru Sreshtah Nastyanto Vistarasya Me. Means Hanta means now, very well, now very well, perfectly. To thee I will declare. The Lord does not just give his opinion, he just declares, because what he speaks is truth, absolute truth. Divyaha, indeed, my Atma Vibhutaya, my glories are definitely divine. As you want to know, I'm not going to tell you my ordinary attributes. All my attributes are glorious because of him, Sri Krishna being an Ishvara. Then he says, Pradhanyatah, in their prominence. Oh, Kuru Sreshta means the best of the Kurus. So he belonged to the Kuru clan, Arjuna. So he was the best as far as uh, the qualities of a warrior are concerned. He is one of the best. Very intelligent, very strong, very capable. Best of the Kuru. Sreshta. Kuru Sreshta. That is Arjuna's name. Na asti antah vistarasya me. Means there is no end to the details. I will give you attributes, as many attributes as possible, but don't think there is an end of my attributes. There will still be attributes which are not declared by me, but I'll definitely try to give a comprehensive view of what my attributes are. So the blessed Lord says, the essence of this stotra, this verse is, very well, Hanta means very well, I shall now tell you my divine glories according to their prominence. I will gradedly, in a graded manner, reveal to you. I won't tell everything in one stroke. That's why there were other chapters also, all the different aspects of the Lord. But Vishwarup gives a pretty good idea, Vishwarup Darshan. So he said, oh, best of the Kurus, Kuru Sreshta, there is no end to the details of my manifestation. So I'll give you a hint that is more than enough for you, but to know me completely, it's beyond your capacity. Now, the splendors in nature vary. They are all verily the attributes of Ishvara. They may be so many splendors. So you can't enumerate them. Nobody can say that I can explain every splendor of nature. They are not possible. It is impossible for Ishvara himself, even if he wants, when he takes a human body, the avatara cannot express it. That's why Sri Ramakrishna said, what Brahman is cannot be spoken of by the mouth. So a few specimens only can be mentioned. His infinitude may be inferred from them. So he says, I am giving you a few prominent specimens of my nature, my attributes, my glories. And then you infer, you try to use your wonderful brain to understand and to imagine, or try to meditate, more importantly. That is the point which is being emphasized here. How much of the glories you have understood is not important, but how much of meditation you do on those glories. Understood that Sri Krishna, suppose you meditate on one aspect of Sri Krishna, like his universal love, and always imagine that he's showering his universal love. So only understanding one attribute and meditating on it constantly, or maybe take another example, the Lord will protect me, the Lord will protect me. So that idea of a protector God, it's another attribute of the Lord. If that is also repeated, the word which we saw, parichintayan, that is very important. He says, don't allow me just to do chinta, that I'm doing day and night. And that's the result of my misery. I just go on chinta, thinking, going round and round and round. So, and that chinta is not leading anywhere. It doesn't steady itself and become calm and composed and collected and think of one thing deeply till you move to the other thing. You see, there was a Japanese brahmachari in training center, and I heard from others, of course. They said these Japanese are very wonderful people in that sense. they won't take up another subject of knowledge unless they master one. So it was very difficult, whereas Indians are fine with everything. We Indians, or maybe many of the races, they want multiple knowledge. They want to multitask, they want many things at the same time. Otherwise they get bored. Whereas somehow the secret of Japanese success is that they stick to one idea. If you give them one idea, they will stick to it. Go practice it, implement it, and go to its logical conclusion. Then they will find or decide whether it is useful for them or not. Or then they'll say, okay, now tell me what other things you have. So perhaps for such a person, this Vishwarup Darshan is of no use. He will do one thing which you tell him, and that is the end. That is what is meant by Parichintayan. So Arjuna understands that I am a man of varied tastes, so many skills that I can even defeat an army. But this understanding of the self, understanding of the Isha is one pointed. It requires a yogin or a one pointed mind, a chitta which is free from restlessness. No vrittis are bubbling up, making us restless. If that thing happens, he knows that then Sri Krishna does not have to reveal himself. He will be self-revealed. But unfortunately, I want to know the attributes. My mind is not happy with one parichinta. It requires more chinta right now. Gradually, as Sri Krishna said, Arjuna would have understood that too much of complications in life are not good. So anyway, to define God from scriptural knowledge, this is now I'm quoting from Sri Ramakrishna, is like defining the holy city of Banaras after getting an idea of it from the map. So it is like trying to tell Banaras, show Banaras, maybe through which visuals. In those days there were no visuals, so map was the only thing, or maybe some painting. Now, of course, you can have TV programs and which give you a pretty live idea of what Banaras is like that. But still, to understand God through scriptures and to realize Him are different things. So that is what the Lord says. I'll give you a few hints, but don't think that is my entire reality. My reality is far, far beyond. But anyway, it will be, you can take it as a starting point to infer my real greatness, my real truth. So the truth about the universe has to be known right from the beginning. So that is why Lord says, and we'll end with this verse. We have just 1 minute. I think we can finish this. Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarvabhuta Ashaya Stitaha Aham Adi cha Madhya cha Bhutanam Anta eva cha. So we'll just see the meaning, and then if there are questions you can ask, otherwise we'll conclude today. Aham Atma Gudakesha. I am the self. Now, first, before even telling his individual vibhutis, he's telling his overall nature, so that Arjuna does not get confused. He said, I am the self, the Atma. Gudakesha means one who does not sleep. Arjuna had that capacity to stay awake. Otherwise, how can he fight a battle? So for several days without sleep, he could be very active on the next day. So he was known as Gudakesha. So that is one of the Gudakesha actually means one who has conquered sleep. It's not that he is sleepless, insomnia, not that he has insomnia and he is not able to sleep, but he has conquered sleep. He does not require much sleep. He is active and strong even without the sleep. So the Lord, who is the innermost self, is seated in the hearts of all beings. This is very important. Why we meditate on the heart? So right from beginning, Sri Krishna is saying, he could have said, I am in the core of each being, or maybe I am everywhere, which he says afterwards, I am the beginning, I am the middle and the end of all beings. So it's our entire lifetime is pervaded by the Lord. But there is a special seat, and that is the heart. So Lord is the innermost self in all beings, which are all his gross manifestations. All the beings that you see, good, bad, small, big, great and all those things, trivial, everything is a gross manifestation of Prakriti or the Lord himself. The effect is nothing but the cause in another form. The cause is the Lord, the effect is the world that we see. The Lord is the material as well as the efficient cause. This is a famous argument these Advaitins give, that he creates the world out of himself, so is the material cause. He is the efficient cause because he helps this change to take place. So he not only transforms, he transforms whatever is within and projects it as something else outside. So that is the whole of Maya. Now, Gudakesha is one who conquered sleep. And then finally, the one who is awakened in the self, who has realized this self, can cognize the fact that Ishvara is putting on the appearance of the visible universe. It is like a person who is definitely defined by his body and other things, but he puts on coats, he puts on masks, he puts on so many things, so he appears different. So Ishvara is likewise appearing as a bad man, a good man, all the different beings that you see. People come in different forms and creatures, but all these are appearances. The visible universe itself is an appearance, but unless you awaken yourself to the self within, where he is hiding, so that is why Sri Ramakrishna said, my cosmic mother, that is divine mother, has become everything. She of omnipotence has become the universe and the beings in it. She reveals herself as body, mind, intellect, the virtuous path, the spiritual pursuit. All the good and bad things in the world are represented by her. Shakti and Brahman are one. In the manifest state, she is Shakti, and in the absolute state, she is Brahman. So we conclude today, and maybe there are a few questions. Let me just see. How far can we compare Arjuna's Vishwarupa Darshana with Thakur bestowing divine consciousness to devotees on Kalpataru? They are totally different. The experiences here, Kalpataru experience is, you can't compare them, because here he wanted to see his greatness. Arjuna wanted to see the glories. Whereas Kalpataru day, Sri Ramakrishna asked just to test Girish Ghosh, what do you see? What glories do you see in me that you are saying I am an avatara? And Girish Ghosh gives a very humble remark, very humbly praised. He says, Vyasa and Valmiki, the people who wrote biographies of Rama and Krishna, Vyasa wrote about Krishna, uh, Valmiki wrote about Ramayana. He said, Valmiki and Vyasa themselves say that they have not understood the Lord properly or his attributes properly. What can I say? What can I say about this? I am just an ignorant person. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna's, to understand him, to to understand or to even have a glimpse of what his greatness is like, these vibhutis have been told. But Sri Krishna definitely tells him that this is not all of my glory. This is just a small fraction, but that is enough for you right now at your stage. You hear from me. So we'll begin that from the next verse. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.